Hello.
The Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management is the confederation of the world's major PR and communication management associations and institutions, representing over 280,000 practitioners and academics across 126 countries worldwide.
A not-for-profit organisation, Global Alliance relies on the efforts of communication professionals to tackle common problems with a global perspective.
The Global Alliance's mission is to unify the public relations profession, raise professional standards all over the world, share knowledge for the benefit of its members, and be the global voice for public relations in the public interest.
By partnering with regional, national and international bodies to increase professionalism in public relations and communication management, this alliance works to enhance the collaborative competence of the industry among its constituents around the world.
Global Alliance is at the forefront of the representation of PR and communication management as a profession in which the importance of ethical behaviour is unquestionable. The development of a global protocol on ethics for public relations and the requirement that all Global Alliance members ratify it demonstrates this commitment to integrity.
The Global Alliance's vision is to enhance the role and value of public relations and communication management to organisations and to global society.
Joining Global Alliance gives you the opportunity to engage with the world's communication professionals and benefit from special discounts from member conferences around the world.
The World Public Relations Forum,
Regional conferences,
Association Leaders Workshops,
networking with world members,
participation in our Self-Assessment Global Capabilities Framework.
Expand your knowledge with the PRSA Learning Platform and keep up to date on world trends and insights with Global Alliance's monthly newsletter.
Set professional standards with the global principles of ethical practice in PR and communication management. And be informed with the Global Communications Report.
Join our Global Alliance Board or one of our 6 regional councils: Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, India, Middle East, Latin America and North America.
So now you know, go global, be global, and join Global Alliance. Hello, I'm Justin Green, President and CEO of Global Alliance. And I want to wish you a good morning, afternoon, good evening, or even good night, because wherever you are around the world, we have over 500 people joining us this week who are young practitioners and young students. And it's not only a huge occasion for you, but it's a huge occasion for the whole industry, because this is the first time ever such a number of young practitioners and students have come together to engage and to give your views and insights, which are essential for the future of public relations. And the reason that it's so essential is because you are the future of public relations. And today we hand you the torch to continue our profession, to build the standards, to spread our ethical standards around the world. So this is a huge occasion for the profession, as well as everyone participating here today. And I'd like to wish you all the best for this conference. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you to all the countries, to all our associations, to all our members right around the world for making this happen. So from here in Dublin, thank you, have a great week, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you for that little note, Justin. And a very good afternoon to the young PR and corporate communications practitioners from across the world. Today is the third day of the Impact, the Global Youth Public Relations and Communications Convention, the first ever online international convention that will gather current and future PR communications practitioners to collaborate and learn from the industry thought leaders. This is one of the many incredible events that Global Alliance pulls together, and we are so glad to be a part of it. My name is Hemant Gaule, and I am a part of the School of Communications and Reputation. We are a PR institute based in India, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So, without further ado, it is an honor and pleasure to introduce you to today's speaker. So, today's speaker is an author of Atrapados por el Consumo and Corporate Reputation. He has written numerous articles in publications highly referenced and is a collaborating professor at the internationally recognized universities and business schools, as well as an honorary professor at the University of Malaga. He is the co-director of the Global CCO, Strategic Communication Management of Reputation, Brand and Communication, a program in communication and reputation and brand. He's also the board member, academic and research director of the Global Alliance for PR and Communications Management, and the director of the Global PR and Communications Model, a global roadmap to guide the future of communication profession and the management of intangibles. We had the opportunity to host him as well on one of the conversations in our India, Middle East, Africa Council. So ladies and gentlemen, Ángel Alloza.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me, Hemant. I'm very glad to be part of the global month for youth and practitioners and students. So it's my pleasure to be here and to share the floor with you.
Welcome to Approaching the Future, Trends in Reputation and Management of Intangibles. This is the yearly report we publish at Corporate Excellence Center for Reputation Leadership, together with Canvas Estrategias Sostenibles.
It is a practical tool to know the map of trends and priorities of the organizations.
This issue presents 15 priority issues that will mark the present and the future of the organizations on the essential issues of reputation, corporate brand, sustainability, transparency, and ethics. Approaching the Future 2021 integrates in this new edition new sources. More than 400 global reference sources, the opinion of 500 professionals from 30 countries around the world, social foresight studies, in-depth interviews with 8 leading experts in order to be able to talk about the future, and finally, artificial intelligence, to be able to detect the impact of the business agenda that will mark conversations and attitudes around the world.
The most relevant trends for professionals include some of the areas that will allow organizations to respond and adapt to this new reality. Although they have high scores, the most relevant topics globally are the adaptation to responsible leadership, adaptation to the context, reputation and reputational risk, new ways of working, the corporate purpose, digitalization, and cybersecurity. In the case of LATAM, representing around 30% of the samples, the themes coincide, but it can be seen that Latin American professionals give somewhat higher scores to the relevance of all these trends. In both cases, responsible leadership is essential to respond to this context of crisis and uncertainty. 70% of professionals says the pandemic has changed the way organizations are led and that a new model of leadership is required, based on values, positive impact, sense of purpose, and value creation balance for all stakeholders. What does it mean to promote transformational and inclusive leadership? When we consult with professionals, they point out the following characteristics such as empathy, transparency, long-term vision, and corporate purpose, followed by adaptation to the context, authenticity, sensitivity to the environment, innovation, and sustainability.
We now analyze the areas in those who are working the most in organizations on a day-to-day basis. Before, they told us what was important. Now, they're telling us what they're working on. We see how 80 or 84% of the organizations are putting their efforts in adapting to the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to this, which is logical, professionals assure us that they're developing projects related to issues such as the digitalization of their organizations and new models of communications, to which I will return to in a moment. Activating and driving corporate purpose, which is growing in relation to the previous edition, and it does so in a significant way. Reputation management and reputational risk, and of course, cybersecurity. It is worth noting, as I said before, for the first time in 6 years, that communications appears as a priority issue. And I think we have to see this as something really relevant, because communication has proven its strategic importance as a key aspect to connect organizations with their stakeholders and respond effectively to their expectations. We also see how reputation and reputational risk grow. For 70% of organizations, it is an issue that is more relevant now than it was before the pandemic. It becomes a fundamental element to be able to be absolutely connected with stakeholder expectations, to be able to integrate that judgment that they will make about us in the day-to-day, and to help us transform our organizations into excellent organizations that make smart decisions.
If we analyze the data for Latin America, we observe that the topics and those that are making the most progress are similar. The main differences are in digitization, which is progressing much more globally than in the case of Latin American organizations, and the fact that Latin America companies is progressing more intensively in all the above aspects mentioned previously. In particular, the impact of the pandemic has driven a breakthrough in the management of corporate purpose and corporate reputation management. Thus, we observe how the number of organizations that are making progress in corporate purpose from 20% in 2020 to 36% in 2021, a figure that rises to 41.8% in the case of Latin America. As explained in the report, having and defining a purpose presents big differences with activating and implementing it. We observe how many organizations define the corporate purpose through statements, but in which they do not take their stakeholders into account, both internal and external, and advance its implementations through behaviors associated with the values and the alignment of all touchpoints of the brand platform. It is what Approaching the Future calls the word without reality, or the paradox of purpose. At the same time, in this edition, we observe progress in corporate reputation management. This is the third most relevant factors for business management, and we observe the number of organizations working on reputation goes from 22% by 2020 to 34% by 2021, a figure that rises to 40% in the case of Latin America organizations.
I would like to highlight one important aspect on the data in this issue, and it's all related to the slowdown of the issues of the 2030 agenda and climate change. It seems that while in 2020 companies were prioritizing these issues for the social development, economic development, and also as a response to climate change or the 2030 agenda, this year's themes are predominantly linked with business management, such as responsible leadership, reputation, new ways of working, or communication. In this way, the 2030 agenda becomes the second most important issue being worked on in 2020. We had there 40% of the organizations committed to its progress, and now it falls to 25%. This is a significant drop, and the data is even more drastic, I would say, in Latin America, where this relevance drops by half, with just over 20%, and these results are similar when compared to the climate emergency. In 2020, it was among the top 3 issues of importance in the ranking, and today it occupies the 11th place. This shift in priorities has all the sense in the world, and it's a consequence, logically, to the eruption of the coronavirus, which has had a particular impact on the economic spheres and also in the areas of employment. But that's why we include the interviews with experts on this occasion, because what that expert gives us is the vision of the future, beyond what circumstantially we're seeing this year, the results of this survey. And that assures us that the Sustainable Development Goals, climate change, and the fight against social inequality are themes that are here to stay, and even more to gain strength in the future.
One of the peculiarities of approaching the future is that it introduces the look of the opinion through the study of digital ecosystems, using the internet as a tool for social research. This allows us to identify the most relevant aspects in terms of audience and in terms of positive or negative impact. Specifically, for this edition, we have analyzed 1,400 million contents and more than 15,000 trends. And what did we observe? The priority topics in the digital ecosystem in terms of audiences, congregation of large volumes of interaction, and positive sentiment are the digitization, sustainable investment, and new ways of working. These themes are the most relevant to society in digital ecosystems, so it can be seen as an opportunity for organizations in order to strengthen their leadership role, create lasting differentiation, and generate trust and higher levels of engagement with its stakeholders. These are the main results of the trends presented by approaching the future.
Now, it is time to navigate successfully in this new context and into the future. The compass is approaching the future in order to become organizations that are more sustainable, more responsible, and deserving the respect, trust, and admiration of its stakeholders.
Discover approaching the future and move towards the model of the future of organizations.
Wow, what an incredible presentation, Ángel. And I've had the opportunity to see this before as well. And I'm sure everybody can access it. We'll make sure to drop a link towards the end as well, Ángel. So good to see you. Welcome back. Good to have this conversation with you again.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to stress that everything is available for free to anyone who's interested in the results of this study. So yes, please access the results, the full presentation, as well as the full report. Is it free?
Right.
And it is available for you.
Right. We'll make sure we drop the links as well. One of the things that I really like about this report is the size of the sample that you collected as well, over 400 responses. How difficult was it, Ángel, to build this study and summarize its findings? How long did it take for you to do that?
Well, I have to say that it is a sixth edition of this study. We do this on an annual basis. And basically what we do is we set up the field work and the effort to join and to reach the audiences to be interviewed by setting alliances with associations, with professional associations. And I have to say that the limitation of this edition is that it has been carried out in Europe and in Latin America. But with the help of the Global Alliance for PR and Communication Management, next year, we will carry out the survey on a global basis. So we will have access to, if I may say, to the split of the results by regions. So next time it will be even more relevant than this time.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. We would love to support it in any way that we can. So Ángel is now ready for questions. So if you have any questions for Ángel, please feel free to send them in the chat box below. And we already have a few questions coming in. So let me start off with the first one. So the question is that communications appears to be one of the key priorities for organizations in the current context. And it is the first time in 6 years of this research that where we see that communications as an essential strategic element for adapting to the reality of the pandemic and listening to and monitoring stakeholder demands and expectations, such as clients, employees, and public opinion, are having the most significant impact on corporate communication strategies. So the question is, do you think CEOs understand the real importance of communications and the need to manage it excellently?
Thank you, Hemant. I think it is a very good news especially for the young practitioners as well as the students, because as you have just said, it is the first time in 6 years that communications is at the top of the priorities. So why is that? And probably the answer is COVID-19. COVID-19 has demonstrated the value and the strategic importance of communications with all stakeholders, and especially with our own employees. So now it is like the rediscovery of the huge importance that internal communication has. And it is now the topic of communications, internal, external, is now in the agenda of the CEOs all over the world. So it is a bright future for anyone interested in this profession. So it's good news for everyone.
Absolutely. There's another question here that talks about the corporate purpose, and activating corporate purpose is one of the most relevant trends for professionals. 8 out of 10 professionals saying so. It is the building block number 1 of the global PR and communications model as well. However, we are seeing that in many cases, the purpose has not been defined or implemented following a rigorous and effective methodology. And as a consequence of that, it is limited to being mere conceptual and communications exercise. And inverse to the case is an exercise of purpose washing that generates risks derived from a lack of coherence and authenticity, with the consequent loss of legitimacy and trust, and the erosion of corporate reputation. So from your point of view, what should be the role of PR communications director in this matter?
I think that the role of the PR and communications director is key, because companies need to define and activate their purpose, but they need to do that in a way which allows this process of defining a context of building beliefs and generating identification in all the key the stakeholders that you want to align. So the key question is that you have to define and activate your purpose, not for your stakeholders, but rather with them, which means that you have to follow a methodology, a professional and a very rigorous methodology, in order to fully understand which are the expectations of your stakeholders, and finding a way of having a common purpose, both the corporate purpose with the personal, professional purpose of each one of the stakeholders that you want to activate. So that professional way of defining and activating purpose needs a specialist able to do that. And I think that this is a huge opportunity for the PR and communication professionals to really make the point and being part of the strategic decisions in the organization. And the most important one probably is defining and activating purpose. If I may say, and I will finish with this, any company anywhere in the world has to achieve 2 different objectives. One is a long-lasting differentiation, able to attract talent, clients, as well as capital. So a lasting differentiation is based on basically your purpose and the way you activate purpose through all the touch points of your brand. So differentiation is based on purpose. On the other hand, you have an imbalance, you have your license to operate. How do you reach your license to operate? It is a social license. So on this other hand, what I have is reputation. So the key functions for the future is differentiation and license to operate. Based on what? The professional management of purpose and the corporate brand. And on the other hand, the management of reputation. And what we have amongst or joining these 2 balances, what we have is communications. Communications is the key thing to bring to life both purpose as well as reputation.
Interesting. So my next question is about the management of intangibles, and it has been occupying an important place in companies for some time, but there is still a long way to go. And approaching the future of 2021 results, what levers do you consider to be the most important to enhance the reputation management and intangibles? And where should we put the energy in the coming years to continue advancing in its consolidation and influence on organizations? So where should perhaps communications leaders put their energies?
Yes, I think that what we should improve in companies is the process of listening to our stakeholders. Basically, I think that the chief communication officer, if I may say, has to be the chief connecting officer, the one who brings those expectations to the board. And thanks to this idea of listening to the expectations and also listening to how they perceive you and how they judge you, basically what you do is the role of transformation. You are transforming your organization into a better one. And that's a key role for the PR and communication director, being the connecting leader of the organization with its key stakeholders.
Right. Interesting. So in the current social context, the importance of promoting new forms of leadership in organizations has become quite evident. In fact, 7 out of the 10 professionals say that pandemic has changed the way we lead, the way they lead their organizations. And this new leadership is configured as more responsible and sensitive to their environment. So how can we promote authentic leadership? What should be the role of PR and communications director in that manner, in authenticity?
Yes, I think that the CEO and the C-suite in any organization needs the chief communication officer in order to connect the organization with reality. I know that it sounds a little bit strong, but in many organizations, both the CEO as well as the C-suite are disconnected from reality. And when I mean reality, I'm referring to what I said before, the expectations and the demands, and also the judgments and the perceptions that our key stakeholders have. And that's reality. Those perceptions are the reality that matters. And the organization needs someone to bring in a neutral way that reality, even if it's not always easy to bring that reality to the board. But that's the only way you can become an excellent organization. It's by accepting that the reality that counts is the perceived reality. And I think that the PR and communication director has a fantastic opportunity to become and to be the one who connects the organization with the context.
Interesting. All right. So in your opinion, what is the position and status of the PR and communications director in the company today, and where should it be in the future?
Mm-hmm. I think that today, maybe the PR and communication function is probably or expends a lot of too much energy in looking at the media and looking at only a few of the stakeholders that counts for the future of the organization. So in order to have a strategic role, I think that we have to embrace 3 key functions, which are new, or in some organizations are new to the PR and communication manager. One of them is the brand. A corporate brand needs to be led by a chief communication officer. It's not a marketing issue, because we are referring and connecting with all the stakeholders of our company. So the corporate brand is, I think, a key function to to be assumed by the chief communication officer. And because the corporate brand is absolutely connected with purpose, in fact, it's a way of bringing to life purpose in an organization. It gives the opportunity also to access to the most important asset of the organization, which is purpose. So that's why I I understand that purpose and the corporate brand are absolutely connected. So that's one of the territories to be assumed. And then I would mention two other ones. The other one is reputation, because reputation allows you to connect with your stakeholders, to listen to them, and to integrate the perceptions and expectations of your stakeholders into the management, as well as it opens the opportunity to mitigate the reputational risks. So both in terms of opportunities, as well as in terms of risk mitigation, I think that reputation plays a key role for the future of the profession. And then the third one has to be with sustainability. I think that sustainability explains nearly half of the reputation of any organization. When you think about the key pillars or the key building blocks of reputation, and you think about probably 7 of them, which are the pillars of corporate reputation, you have the products and services as one of the most important ones. You have innovation, we have financial results, leadership, but then we have 3 others which are totally related with ISG, because we are talking about corporate citizenship, we're talking about building relational and social capital with your stakeholders, and you have the environment. So you see, those 3 elements explains nearly 40 to 50% of the total reputation of any organization. So I think that this issue, you can use the term sustainability or ISG, no matters, but
right.
It's 50% of reputation.
Right. So 3 of these pillars: corporate brand, reputation, and sustainability, or sustainability or ESG, however you frame it, should be the key roles of the communications director. So my next question is about the long-lasting nature of some of the trends. So many organizations are shifting their focus to responsible leadership and empathy as a way of responding to the coronavirus pandemic and as a way of staying relevant during the pandemic. Do you think that this will continue beyond the pandemic as well?
I think so. In fact, we conducted another piece of research that probably, well, if you want, in another occasion we can present. The title of this piece of research is The Company of the Future, which are the key characteristics of a company in a post-COVID world. And what we have discovered is not a surprise, because the characteristics of this company for the future, in its center, we have again purpose, and the idea of a company which is clearly implementing and bringing to life that purpose through the values, behaviors, and attitude of its employees, and through all and each one of the touch points of the corporate brand. So I think that together with these 2 elements, what we have is communications as a key role to bring to life those behaviors and attitudes, because we need to communicate them in order to influence the perceptions of our key stakeholders. So communications is all over the place. And together with that, and finally, what we have is a strong process of listening, of research, of intelligence, being able to adapt your own company to the changes across time. So those are the 4 key elements for building a company for the future.
I agree. And the pandemic has inadvertently taught us so much, and there's been so much to learn. I don't think reputation managers and communications leaders would waste all that knowledge and not really continue to apply it. And speaking of which, my next question is about whether reputation management is something that even smaller organizations should focus on, or is it something for the largest ones?
It is for any organization, because this idea of connecting and fully understanding the context and the expectation of your stakeholders is much easier in a small organization compared with a large one. So the philosophy and the way of accepting that perceptions are the key reality is accessible to any organization, no matter the size. In fact, I repeat, it is much easier in a very small organization, and you have a way of connecting much more quickly and in a very flexible way with your key stakeholders, because you know them, you personally know them. So it's not a matter of size, it is a matter of knowledge and understanding the power of reputation.
Fantastic. Our next question has been posted in the Q&A box. Are there any trends that you foresee for 2022, which will be a part of the roster of priorities?
Yes, I think that what we have seen in 2021 is that the issues related to climate change, as well as sustainability issues, are or have been under considered in 2021. So I think that next year what we will see is again those issues coming back with a huge priority for companies, as well as for investors and for citizens. So it's about those ASG, the three of them, and maybe giving more emphasis to the social component.
Right, I guess so. So working on reputation management includes listening to voices of many stakeholders. And so how do you determine which stakeholder concerns to listen to and to consider?
Yes, I think it fully depends on the sector, on the industry where you are working, and on your own company. So I think that this idea of measuring reputation has to start after having done an exercise of identification and prioritization of your stakeholders. You have to be fully conscious of who are really the key ones for your future, and it changes. It's different from company to company and from sector to sector, but not. I think you should not start measuring reputation without having done this first exercise.
Right. Okay. So we are at our last question. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to put that in the chat box or the Q&A box. So of all the trends that you've seen, which do you think is the most important for organizations to focus on, and why?
Well, I think that if I have to prioritize, the first one, and after 20 years of helping companies to reach the two objectives of differentiation and license to operate, I will start my journey in the definition and activation of purpose. I think it has to be the first one. And then the second one is to demonstrate, to financially demonstrate that doing this, you are creating and protecting value. So metrics have to be the second key element to be introduced. And the third one is that you're not measuring just to measure. You are measuring to help your organization change. So some of the KPIs that you are going to measure will have to be at the top of the strategy of the organization, which means that those KPIs have to be attached to the way you compensate your directors and employees. So I think there is a need to introduce, together with the traditional financial KPIs, key ones like reputation, your brand strength or your brand equity, the engagement of your employees, the satisfaction of your clients, and the level of advocacy that you are getting from your stakeholders, including the employees as well as your current clients. Those 5 non-financial KPIs attached to the way you compensate your directors and employees are really the levers to transform your company into the company that the future needs, which is a company building value for the short and the long term and generating value not only for the shareholders, but also in a very balanced way for all your key stakeholders. So I think that's the profile of the companies that the world needs. Long value creation, as well as distribution of value to all their stakeholders.
All right, incredible. Thank you so much for that, Ángel. I think we've come to the end of our session. Thanks to yourself for answering all these questions and sharing the trends in reputation and intangible asset management insights as well. It was a pleasure having you with us. And just a reminder to all the attendees, this report is available to be downloaded for free from the Global Alliance website. Matthias has kindly shared the link to do that up in the chat box. Thanks to the wonderful audience for being a part of our celebration for the Student and Young Practitioners Month. Make sure you attend the next few days of this convention and learn from the highly acclaimed thought leaders in the PR and communications field as well. And a big congratulations and kudos to the organizing team, Stacy, Jericho, and Matthias, for building this incredible event. Well done. And once again, I'm Hemant Gaule, part of a School of Communications and Reputation based in India. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.